Okay, I think we can go ahead and begin. So I will just allow folks to continue to come on in as they want to. And feel free if you're here and you find that this isn't quite what you were interested in, or you want to move on to another session, uh, that is perfectly fine. You're welcome to kind of, I think, move in and out of the sessions. So feel free. Um, just as kind of a little bit of a housekeeping, I know there was a question about the bingo. Someone had asked, and I think I texted my contact, and then I've gotten a couple of messages from folks that it sounds like it's either something that the exhibitors in the exhibit breakout area, that they are the folks who are taking care of the bingo, or there's something about bingo tonight during a hangout time period. So if I get any more information before our time is over this afternoon, I will certainly let you know. But I would recommend that you check in with the exhibitor hall or the exhibitor Zoom link to find out more about the bingo. So I don't have any magic abilities to give you any bingo jobs. Otherwise, I totally would do that and give you all a bingo. So anyway, so welcome everyone. Just going to introduce myself. My name is Stephanie Birmingham, and I work for an organization called Options for Independent Living. Options for Independent Living is an independent living center, and there are 8 centers throughout the state of Wisconsin. And we are responsible for providing some very important services for individuals with disabilities. And when I say we're responsible, it's that there is a law that requires that our centers provide what we call core services to adults and transition age youth who identify as having a disability. And when I talk about disability, I'm talking about the whole range of disabilities. So that can be individuals who have intellectual and developmental, hearing, vision, physical, emotional, and mental health, um, sensory, those disabilities that maybe we don't always see, but are invisible disabilities. So all disabilities. And the services that we provide are peer support, which means I'm guessing there's a lot of peers right now on this call or in this session together. And peer support is really being able to connect people who maybe they don't have the exact same disability, but share some similar experiences to be able to talk with one another and support each other. So we provide peer support. We provide transition services. So perhaps you are still in high school and you're trying to think about what you're going to do when you're going to graduate, whether you're turning 18 or 21, and you're trying to sort that out. We have staff who are able to assist you in figuring some of those things out and making that transition as smooth and easy as possible. Or if perhaps you're in an institutional based type of environment and setting, like a nursing home or a CBRF, which is a community-based residential facility, we can also work with you to figure out how can you live independently in your own home. We also provide independent living skills training. So part of being able to live independently in your own home or your own environment is being able to have the skills that you need to be able to live safely and in the best way possible in your own home and on your own. So we can help learn those skills and teach those skills. And then we provide advocacy, which is what we're going to talk most of our time here today about. So those are our main things. So my job or my role at Options is advocacy. So my official title is advocacy coordinator. But what I get to do really is help educate different community members and leaders and businesses about what does it mean when we talk about disability, and what are the different laws and rules and regulations that are really important when we talk about how we're building our communities, how are we building our homes, our new buildings. When we look at uh, our communities, both within our own maybe neighborhoods, but even within our own cities, and then within our state, what does it mean when we talk about including individuals with disabilities in all parts of life? My really fun and exciting job is I get to talk about that and advocate for equal access for all of us, for everybody with a disability. So, advocacy can take many different forms, and my job is kind of more on a bigger picture level. But I have some staff, and actually my coworkers, a couple of them are on the call. They work right alongside individuals with disabilities on a more personal, person to person level of advocacy. So let's say you are maybe living in your apartment and you recognize that there is something that you need changed or added or adapted in your apartment that perhaps you're not quite sure how you can talk about that with your landlord or your property manager, but you're pretty sure it's something that you need. Well, our staff and someone who can advocate alongside of you, or more person to person level advocacy, is having someone be able to help express what your needs and um, speak alongside you. But the best thing, okay, and I'm actually going to pause for a second here, just to give our Spanish interpreter a moment here to get some technical things sorted out here. So I'm just going to pause. Just gonna. All right. I don't know if my DHS IT support staff is on still, Joe.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Joe. There's a message that the Spanish channel is having some technical difficulties. So I'm just pausing. I don't know if there's something on your end you can help coordinate that.
Yeah, let me look here. Looks like it keeps freezing and restarting. I wonder if he's got an internet issue. I'll work with him.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
So this is a wonderful example of someone using their self-advocacy skills by being able to pause and verbalize what they need. So thank you, Diana. We'll just keep waiting. Okay. So I see an instruction here that for those who are needing to use Spanish. Oh, okay.
Diana, ¿me puedes escuchar? Por favor, dime. Diana, ¿sí me pudiste escuchar? Sí. Yes. Ok. Gracias por esperar. Así que lo que es fantástico de la vida es que nos da oportunidades y son ejemplos de lo que podemos hacer. Gracias a Diana por tomar un momento.
Speaking up about something that you needed. So you were definitely using some self-advocacy skills. So like I said, there's the systems level, kind of higher up advocacy. Then there's the advocacy that's really kind of on the ground, person to person. And then there's where we can kind of advocate alongside one another and have others advocate with us. But then ultimately there's kind of, I think my favorite type of advocacy is the self-advocacy. And that's the advocacy where you, as the expert in your own life, on your own needs, on your own desires, dreams, right? You get to be the one who uses your voice. And I don't necessarily always mean your literal voice, right? But whatever way is your way to communicate, you do that and you let people know and you make sure that your needs and your desires and your dreams are being met to the best of your ability. So a big thing with advocacy, whether that's self-advocacy, advocacy with other people, or city level, county, state level, and even at the federal level, a big piece of it that I've learned is educating. And I'll be honest, sometimes it's really, really hard work. But it's also a really, really great opportunity to give voice to yourself and share a perspective that perhaps is new for some people. So for me, my advocacy journey in general, I would say started way back in elementary school. So I don't know how clear it is, but I'm sitting in a power wheelchair and I am a person of short stature. So I'm a little person. And growing up, I would go to my fellow elementary school classmates and give a little presentation and discussion and encourage my peers to ask questions about why I'm this size, why I use a wheelchair, what it's like, and all of that sort of stuff. And while it maybe isn't the most traditional way of advocating, because I'm not talking about a particular law or particular right, it is a form, I believe, of advocacy, and really where I began my journey of being a self-advocate. Because it also meant I had to learn a lot about myself too, and where my strengths and where my areas that need some further growth are. So I know we've only got about 15 minutes left, and I'm a big fan of asking folks to be able to have an opportunity to share their own thoughts or ask any questions. And I don't want to bore you all with my whole 33-year life story, because everybody has a story. Everybody has their own journey of being a self-advocate. But if I can surmise what it means to be a self-advocate in the shortest, most succinct way possible, and succinct being trying to not use lots of fancy words, it is to know and to learn as much as you can about yourself and about what your rights are, and to not be afraid to use your voice to make sure that you have the same access and opportunity as anybody else does. And for those times that it's really hard, or you're tired, or you don't know what to do, you can still be a self-advocate and ask others to advocate alongside of you. I used to think that it was super important for me to be independent, and that being independent meant I would never have to rely on anybody else. And I decided that I actually don't like the word independent so much, even though I work in an independent living center. Might sound a little funny, but I really like the word interdependent, because ultimately nobody is fully independent, whether you have a disability or not. Unless you're perhaps in that one movie, I don't know he ends up befriending his volleyball. He lives on an island. So perhaps, unless you're living on an island all by yourself, the odds are you're never fully independent. You're going to be interdependent. And that's okay. So I would like to hear from folks who are here in our virtual space together. Any questions? Any sharing of your own experience? Or maybe there's been times where you've struggled and you don't know what kind of the next step or best approach might be in advocating.
Stephanie, I really like this forum because it's a good way for people to get together and talk about what they can do to have, I'm sorry, my stupid phone, what they can do to have good service from service providers as far as iris consultants, which is my job. When you come into the program, you don't know all the things that your program can do for you. And to get together with other people in the program and talk about it and say, oh, this is my experience, and to share that experience makes you a better advocate for your own life.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think you're right, Anne. We all have something that we can learn from one another's experience and journey. And sometimes we won't always get it quite right when we advocate. That doesn't mean it's necessarily not worth it, or that we don't keep trying and continuing to move forward. There's times where, sometimes I have advocated for things in my personal life and maybe it doesn't always go exactly how I want, but it doesn't mean that I just should stop being an advocate or stop advocating for myself and for others.
Stephanie, there's something in the chat that you might look at. Anyone? Joe, can you tell Stephanie?
That I could not think of because I actually haven't seen it, but I just think of the volleyball is Castaway. So if you're a movie buff, so how many of you here would identify as an advocate or self-advocate? I know not everyone has their screens on, but that's okay for those of you who do. And I see a few hands go up. Okay, all right. Okay. So how do you know? Okay, I like the virtual emoji thumb. I got to go to my second page here. Awesome. All right. So what makes you a self-advocate?
There are comments in the chat, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
excellent, Joe.
Read out the comments here. So Savannah says, as a fellow advocate, I found your use of interdependent instead of independent profound. I love how we're always setting up new dialogues and paradigms which is a word for of how we think about things and look at things regarding disability rights. Progress is great. M. Bubba Bloom says direct care providers need to do a better job advocating for not only those we care for, but ourselves as well. All of us have something to learn from Stephanie's example. Thank you, Stephanie, for doing what you do. Keep on kicking, chicken. Well, thank you. That's a good expression, kicking chicken. Okay, Anne says having a goal and find resources to make it happen. Yes, definitely. Having a goal and finding those resources, that's really important. Marie Massart says speaking up for yourself. Definitely. That is self-advocacy 101 right there. Speaking up for yourself, indeed. Diana asks, can you give any tips to caregivers, allies who want to help loved ones find their own voice? How can we advocate with them and for them without taking their voice away? And Cynthia Brown, my name is Jacob. I advocate for myself by speaking up and asking questions. Yes, asking questions is a great tool, Jacob. And actually that, Jacob, I'm glad you said that, because that's actually a really wonderful tool that advocates, caregivers and allies can use, is asking questions. And not just yes or no questions, but those open-ended questions, right? Where there isn't just one specific answer. So when I'm thinking about, how do I know what I need? So my background is I'm also a counselor. So I tend to think about emotions, and I think our emotions and how we kind of act tells us a lot about ourselves and a lot about what we need or what we don't need. So, I think if you're an ally or a caregiver, something as simple as saying, I've noticed, and you can share whatever that observation is, and then following that up with, what do you think about that? Is that something you are needing? Is that something you don't want more of? Just asking lots of questions, and giving people the choices. There's always more than one way of doing something. And then helping people be able to understand what those choices are. Allison chimed in here, providing choices and explaining the choices. So helping people understand what's available. And sometimes as advocates, we're afraid to ask questions, right? Because we don't want to maybe upset other people, or we think that because we've been doing something one way that it always has to be done this way. And I like to think that part of being a self-advocate is asking others to think outside the box, which is kind of a phrase for being creative with you. I see someone else here working towards being a better me today by asking for help when I need it, asking questions when I just don't get it, not just doing something someone wants me to do if the outcome is not what I'm looking for, was the discussion of how we are advocating. Yes, so if you don't understand something, I think that's great. Ask questions. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I don't quite understand this. Can you help me understand it a little bit better? There's nothing wrong with that at all. And you're right, just doing something because somebody else wants you to do something, especially if it's not going to get the outcome or it's not going to end up with the results that you are really wanting, then maybe that's not really your decision after all, or your choice after all. So how have others, I want to give other, does anyone else have any other ideas or thoughts on themselves being a self-advocate? Okay, so Jacob is asking, does advocating help with following your passion and goals? That's a good question, Jacob. So does advocating or advocacy help with following your passion and goals? Well, I think this is just kind of my off the top of my head response, is that part of being able to follow your passion and to meet your goals can certainly shape the way that you advocate. So for me, the reason I am so passionate about advocating about disability issues is because of my own lived experience as a person with a disability. Doesn't mean you have to have a disability to advocate or be an ally alongside those with disabilities. It's just, for me, my lived experience has very much shaped my journey and my story. At the same time, just because you're a person with a disability doesn't mean you have to make that your job or your career either. Sometimes it's thought, oh, well, you're a person with a disability, so obviously you should want to be working in that field. Not always the case. I did just federal disability policy right out of college because I thought that was what I wanted to do. And I can tell you that after a year of it, I thought at that time that was the last thing I ever wanted to do again was disability policy or disability advocacy. All I wanted was an absolute break from it. And I took that break and worked with inmates in a jail for a year and a half. But I also found there was some commonalities between advocacy across all types of identities, particularly identities that are perhaps not always understood in society. So for me, we're sort of it's a love unlove relationship. I love it, and yet there are days where it's exhausting, and yet I also I can't leave it either. So we are at 3:30. I know we had a few technical difficulties, so thank you everyone for being patient and bearing with that. I will go ahead and put my email in the chat, so feel free to email me if you have any questions or suggestions, or you just want to send an email. So thank you everyone for taking this time this afternoon, and I wish you all the best in your personal self-advocacy endeavors.